Good morning, everybody. I just want to wish everyone a happy new year. We're January 1st now, so 2016 is over. Um, yeah, so today, I think being a new year, I'm going to take today to just kind of recap my 2016 season. I'll go over some stuff, fish that I caught, my favorite fish that I caught, the lures that I used to catch them, and patterns that worked well for me in 2016. I'll take now to remind everyone to renew your fishing license. Unless you had the 3 year, then most people, your license will be up now. Definitely take the time, go out, make sure you renew it before you get out on the ice. You don't want to get ticketed for that. So we'll start with January. January obviously is ice fishing season. That's kind of how we start off all the time. We didn't get ice till pretty late this year, or last year, I should say, 2016. The third week of January was the first time that we ventured out. We went out, I believe it was January 23rd, was our first day on the ice. It was a little sketchy then. Went out with some buddies. We did it the right way. We had spud bars and float suits and ropes between us, which I'd recommend for everyone. When you're venturing out at first and you're kind of the first guys out there, definitely make sure you take those safety precautions. You don't want to be the guy on the news. Our first trip, however, was a success. We were out on about 2.5 inches of ice for the most part. It was good, solid black ice and cold weather. I felt comfortable out there. I don't think everyone feels comfortable on 2.5 inches of ice, but it was good black ice and it was cold. If it was mild at all on ice like that, there's no way we'd have chanced it. And like I said, we did the best that we could to be as safe as we could. And I wouldn't go out there if I didn't feel comfortable doing it. But the first day was good. We didn't catch a lot of fish, but the ones that we caught were good quality fish. We set up in about 110 feet of water, fishing swim baits. I always start every season in deep water with swim baits. There's a lot of different lures that I vary between swim baits and tubes, lipless crankbaits. The first lure that always gets dropped is a swim bait. Being that the ice was thin, we kind of kept our tackle to a minimum. We didn't bring huts out. We brought little sleds with our electronics, a couple rods, a small selection of tackle, and our safety gear. We try to keep the weight to a minimum and spread out. But yeah, like I said, it was a good way to start. I got out a couple more times before the end of January. Had some really good days where we had 10 to 12 fish a piece, upwards of 20 pounds. Not every fish was 20 pounds, but of those fish, some of them were up to 20 pounds. And we did get some on a lipless crankbait as well, but for the most part, those fish all came on swim baits. So overall, it was a successful January. A bit later start than I would have liked, but it was enjoyable. Once February rolled around, we moved to a different part of the lake. Our early season spot kind of dries up by the time February rolls around. So we really only had about a week of good quality fishing there, and then we had to move. The main lake didn't freeze this year, so we were confined to Kempenfelt Bay, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. There's a lot of opportunity in Kempenfelt. So the area we went to for February was the north side of the bay, and we were targeting both whitefish and lake trout. Normally I prefer to target lake trout. I have more fun with them. I enjoy the sport of it more than eating them. So I do enjoy catching big lake trout, but when they're not biting and there's plenty of whitefish to go around, then we'll definitely spend some time targeting them as well. February, we call it the February blues. You never get the high numbers like you do in January or March. It's usually a grind out there, but we downsized baits this year and did really well. Mostly a half-ounce vibrato by Sebile was my go-to bait for February, both for lake trout and whitefish. And we caught them on other things as well, lipless crankbaits and small swim baits, small minnow-style baits that were only 2.5 inches long. Downsizing really helped to put a higher number of fish on the ice. We had a couple good days, over 10 fish a piece, but for the most part, you're grinding out your 2 or 3 fish. Definitely had a couple skunks, but not as many as the year before, so that's good as well. So March of this year was another fun one. I always look forward to ice fishing in March. Your days are getting longer, the days are getting warmer, you get more light penetration through, and the fish start to move shallower. As the oxygen kind of depletes in the deeper water, they move up a little bit shallower. They feed more aggressively with those longer days, and it's always a good time. I really wish we were able to get out to some of the main lake shoals because they can really turn on in March. But again, we were stuck to Kempenfelt, but we moved shallow. We were fishing anywhere from 50 to 80 feet of water for both lake trout and whitefish, but we definitely had some really good quality fish show up in March this year, which is a good time. We had days, the fun days, where you can go out in a group setting. It's warm enough that you don't need huts and you can socialize and have fun. I love going out on days like that, spending as much time as I can fishing with friends and family, and getting good numbers of fish as well, both lake trout and whitefish. There were days we went out and we had between 4 of us 10 fish on the ice in the first half an hour, and that's always fun to spend that time out there. March of this year was a tough one for me. One of my last days on the ice there, I got a phone call that no one wants to get from my dad, saying that he'd been diagnosed with stage 4 melanoma. That was a tough phone call to get, and it stayed with me all year, and it's going to stay with me, probably forever at this point. But seeing my dad's positivity is really uplifting. He has a passion for life. He enjoys every minute, and it's been inspiring to see. I got out to fish with him quite a bit this year, which you'll see coming up in the review here. But that made March a little tougher. But I spent a lot of time on the ice, which is kind of my safe place. So once April rolled around, that's normally when I start getting into ice out perch and crappies and steelhead and all that kind of stuff. The off-season fish, I call them. We didn't really do much of that this year. My wife and I bought our first house in April, and that took up quite a bit of the time, which, it's kind of sucked not getting out fishing, but at the same time, that was a big moment for us, being able to have our first house. Not paying someone else's mortgage, which is really nice. So that was a happy moment for us for sure. I'm definitely thrilled still to have done that with her, and have a home for my wife and my son. So that's what we spent most of April doing, and didn't really get into the fishing again until May. Once May rolled around, I've got plenty of options for fishing. May 1st, you get your Great Lakes pike season. Georgian Bay opens up. The second Saturday in May, we have the pike and lake trout and whitefish seasons open up on Simcoe, which is always a good time for me. And then the third weekend, I have pike that opens up in Muskoka. So May is a busy month for me fishing. I always spend a lot of time up north pike fishing. I take a week vacation every year to do that. But before that happens, I get out as much as I can onto Simcoe fishing for lake trout. So I do a bunch of ways. I can go out and jig in the boat, use the electronics the same way as I would ice fishing, just to jig up some nice lake trout. Or my buddy Callum at Happy Go Fishing Charters, we get out quite a bit and do some downrigging for them, which is different. I don't do downrigging or trolling. I do a lot of casting. So it's kind of nice to get out and do that. We put some big fish in the boat this year, which is always a good time. Pike season rolled around, and we had a very successful year this year. A lot of big fish. So when we first got up this year, the water was still pretty cold, and the fish weren't really set up quite where I expected them to be. It took a couple days to really get them dialed in. But once we got them dialed in, we put some real good fish in the boat at the end of May. I got out with a bunch of family. I brought my wife out for a little bit, and she got into a bunch of fish. I brought my dad out. He got into some fish. I had some buddies out who got into some fish, and I was able to land quite a few as well, which is the name of the game. I always enjoy fishing in May. June is always a fun time of year for me. Bass season opens at the end of June, but prior to that, even I still got a little bit of time to fish for lake trout. I'm still finishing up my pike season. The pike season in June this year was really good. We had, like I said, a pretty cold spring, so it delayed the pikes moving into deep water, and they set up in their staging areas for longer than they normally do. I find the fish to be fairly predictable at that time of year. Not just on one lake. I've got 6 or 7 lakes that I rotate between, and kind of as the season goes, I dial in on certain lakes and it's different all the time. So it's nice that they set up and I could really pick them apart. I did really well this year throwing a homemade swim bait that I pour myself. A variety of different things, really. Between the swim bait, catching fish, I did some flipping to some structure with live suckers, which is something I'd never done before. But I had a lot of following fish that weren't committing. I decided to try it out, and it was a lot of fun. It's not something I'm used to doing, but I definitely enjoyed doing it. Another bait I really like early in the year is an Ace by Imperium, which is a soft jerkbait style bait. I rig it up on steel leaders that I tie myself, and it's a really almost finesse way of fishing for pike. It's not a big bait, but it triggers those less aggressive fish, which is something I really enjoy doing. You can see them follow. You can really play to what they want with those baits, which is nice. But yeah, after we got the pike season, we did a little bit more jigging, and then bass season opened up. Got out on opening day, spent the whole day out there. I think 14 hours we put in fishing on Simcoe for smallmouths. We did a little kind of one-on-one tournament in the morning. Had a pretty good weight for that, I think just over 25 pounds. And then went back out with another buddy in the afternoon and just put a beating on fish. We didn't get a lot of big ones in the afternoon, but we got a big number of fish. A lot of, high 3 to 4.5 pound fish. It was a lot of fun. Some big bowfin mixed in, which is fun sight fishing for them. Yeah, I love Simcoe for a multi-species day like that, but I always love bass season, so